Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to a new episode of Market Targets. And the markets are cooking up for us this week. Definitely. I chose some great pairs to look at for the week. And I'm going to get started with the list I decided to check out. And that is going to be Euro CAD, AUD CHF, AUD NZD, AUD USD, Euro USD, USD CAD, NZD CAD, Euro NZD, and AUD JPY. So those are the pairs I decided to look at for entries this week. And I'm gonna get started with EuroCAD. EuroCAD, we have it going on a nice bullish trend off the daily and weekly time frame. So I want to continue that trend. And I'm gonna move over to the 4 hour time frame. The 4 hour time frame is the time frame I'm gonna be mostly looking at in order to enter this trade. I'm gonna be waiting for the shift of trend to happen to the upside on this one for me to consider even entering this trade. As you can see here, the 4 hour is bearish, so I'm going to wait for it to turn bullish. And once it turns bullish, I'm going to be waiting for smaller time frame confirmations in order to enter this trade. Next up is AUD CHF. AUD CHF, one of my favorite pairs to trade, and I'm seeing it's cooking up a bit of a inverted head and shoulders. So I'm going to be looking at the 4 hour time frame as well on this one, just to get more indication that it wants to go to the upside. I have right here an alert that I just set right now as well, where the shifters trend will happen on the 4 hour. And once it does happen, I will be looking for a long on this trade. Next up, we have AUD NZD. AUD NZD, I won on a long last week, a 1 to 2 on it. And this week, I'm actually looking for a short. So I'm gonna be waiting honestly on the 30-minute time frame. I think this might be the most important time frame for me to enter on. It did shift bullish already. So it did shift bullish about 30 minutes ago. So that's a good indication for me to wait for it to want to go to the downside and do a new shift of trend on the 30-minute to go bearish. Once that does happen, I'm going to be very interested in taking this short. I'm gonna be actually not setting an alert yet because I'm gonna be watching this pair instead of setting alerts on it. Next up is AUD USD. AUD USD last week ended up the week very nicely, to be honest. On the weekly, it looked very nice with a bullish engulfing ending, and it looked good on the daily. Even though the daily is bearish, it is looking like it's wanting to go to the upside, and the 4 hour is almost confirming that pretty much. It did the shifters trend last week on Friday. Not enough for it to give you an entry, obviously, to hold over the weekend. But I don't like holding over the weekend. Since I don't hold over the weekend, I waited for this to pretty much cook up and look for an entry today. And I'm actually going to go to the smallest time frame that I use, which is the 15-minute. And once the 15-minute does go bullish right off this alert that I set right now, right here, I will be most interested to enter this long. Next up is Euro USD. Euro USD cooked up very nicely last week. Very nicely. It did cook up on the daily to go to the upside and it did shift bearish, I mean bullish. But I have to take in consideration that the weekly is very bearish, to be honest. Even though it did a bullish engulfing last week, it does look very bearish. So I'm gonna be very cautious on this trade just because the weekly has a good influence on Euro USD. Let me check out the 4 hour. The 4 hour is looking actually very nice. It is rejecting this support level right now. So if I get more indication that it does want to go to the downside, I will look for an entry. But I might wait for this to cook just a bit more. I might wait for this to go bearish on the 30-minute and then go bullish once more in order to enter this trade. Next up is USD CAD. USD CAD, a very interesting pair, to be honest, for the week. I want it to go short. And the reason I want it to go short, even though that the weekly is bullish, if you go over to the daily time frame, the daily time frame has this nice pattern that it always does, which is a very small double top on the top of trends in order to shift to the downside. And it's done it very respectively, honestly, all throughout this year. If you go here, it did it right here, and then it did it right here once again. It also did it right here. So if we go over and circle these pretty much double tops that it's been doing. It's been doing them very, very frequently and very respected. If you see here, if it does form and it does shift the trend on the daily to the downside, it usually indicates that it's going to continue going to the downside. And as you can see here, it did the same one last week. So I might be looking very early on tonight to enter this trade on a short if it does give me better confirmation. Let me go over to the smaller time frames. Yeah, smaller time frames look, to be honest, already cooked up. So if I do get a rejection off of this support level I set off the 4 hour time frame, I will be interested in taking this short. Next up is NZD CAD. NZD CAD is a good pair for a long, but I do want to wait for extra confirmation just because the push last week was very strong in the weekly time frame and also on the daily time frame. The last 3 days of last week, we did a major push to the upside, which I did predict it to happen. Now I'm just going to be waiting for confirmation if it wants to retrace off this support level or off the support level that it is on right now. That is right now just a support and resistance level. We don't know which one it is until it does break over and retrace and confirm that it wants to keep going to the upside or become resistant in order to use this support level as a support. Next up, Euro NZD. Euro NZD, I'm looking for a short on. And last week I wanted a long. It did the long move early and then shifted to the downside. It did the good shift to the downside. And it was already bearish on the weekly. So I want a continuation trend to the downside this week. So I'm going to be waiting for a rejection of this resistance level that I have set. And let me check out here. Most likely, same thing I want to happen. I want the 30-minute to go bullish. And then once the 30-minute goes bullish, I'm going to be waiting for it to go bearish once again in order to enter. Next up is AUD JPY. It is my least favorite pair of the week just because it is at an all-time high. Since it's at an all-time high, I honestly don't know if it wants to continue to go to the upside or not, since it's pretty much had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of it pretty much rejecting this highest high it's ever had. And the daily looks pretty nice. The 4 hour looks pretty nice. Everything looks pretty nice for it to go to the upside. But statistically speaking, this pair has no history of it going higher. So that's why I'm honestly just watching it just for it to pretty much create the highest high it's ever done this week. Maybe next week retrace, and the week after get the long I was indicating this week. So might not even enter this trade at all, just looking at it to get more information off this trade. Next up is actually nothing. We are done for the week. So those are the 9 pairs that I chose to look at for the week. And they're cooking up very nicely, to be honest. This week, we're going to have a couple entries that we could consider. Maybe tonight we might be looking at 2 or 3 entries for the week. So let's see what cooks up and what does not. And that concludes another episode of Market Targets. Thank you guys for joining.